All right, welcome back. Thanks for joining. I'm Bill Quinn. I am with Juan O Savin this evening, and Juan, thank you for making time. We think this is we're at an important juncture, and I wanted to get us together to be able to talk this through. So thank you for the time, my friend.
Oh, of course, absolutely. This is beyond even just mere politics. This is um, a critical moment for a good friend, not just me and Jennifer, but uh, for the Patriot movement, for the president himself, um, Tina Peters. So, yeah, this cannot be allowed to stand where we're at right now.
Yep. So before we go into background and stuff, just if you could bring us up to speed on what we know of Tina's condition and kind of where we stand this evening, please.
Well, for the last couple of weeks, she's been um, kind of losing momentum, harder to harder to get up every day, which, of course, in a normal situation, you'd attribute to the fact that, hey, she has had dashed hopes. She was told by her own attorney and others that she was going to be out on or by her birthday, uh, somewhere in that range, November or September 11th. And so she was, being buoyed that she was going to make it and this was all going to work. Then her birthday came and went. We had, assurances that they'd have it sorted out in a day or two. They had an understanding this is going to get solved. Take a deep breath. And a week goes by, 2 weeks goes by. Well, we've got this court hearing, and it's a habeas corpus hearing, and show us how you have legal authority to have her in custody in the first place. And the judge should be able to get an answer on that in a short while. I apologize, I got a cart coming by me. And all of a sudden, nothing happens on that. Nothing gets done. It is shocking, but we had been pretty assured that she would be free, near that habeas corpus hearing, because the judge was amenable to what we were saying and it made sense and all that. Well, that was 4 weeks ago. She's supposed to be out, shortly after that on appeal bond. Cases like this, you have baby rapers, drug addicts, or drug uh, manufacturers, drug dealers, and they'll be out while their case is on appeal on a bond,
Mm-hmm.
and pretty regularly. Tina is such a threat to the to society that they have pushed very hard to just keep her in custody because they view her as a threat to society in Colorado. Well, yeah, for their norm, yeah, it's probably true because as it looks like to us, they want the lawlessness of the way that the elections are held in Colorado. Just one item that still has me pissed off. Colorado required, Tina ran for Secretary of State
Mm-hmm.
on my advice while they were doing these charges against her. And uh, so during the primary for that, we saw that there was mischief in the vote, and we suspected that we knew very well that there had been, um, you know, detectable mischief. So uh, they required us to come up with $250,000 in order to pay for supposedly the recount. And on very short notice, we were able to get an audience over several people around the country, but specifically PPN, Patriot Party News, to ante up. And it wasn't one big donation, it was a whole bunch of small donations. It was stunning. And within about 24 hours, we came up with $250,000 to pay for a recount. And they did it on a snap basis. Didn't think we could get there. We found out about it. It was literally going to happen just a couple of hours. And we had to fly Mark Cook in to get to this location where they were going to do this partial recount to see if there was a broader problem. He gets over there. They conducted the most dumbass, pissant, bullshit uh, recount ever on the face of the planet. I am telling you, it was complete and total bullshit. And everybody knew it. And they charged us $250,000 to do this. And laughing at us, okay? Because you can't get to justice in Colorado, is my personal opinion. And uh, somewhere in here, we're going to revisit all of this. I'm just telling you, we're going to. And it's coming. Colorado, uh, the headquarters of Dominion, they think they can get away with everything. We have the guys in physical custody here in the United States who were doing some of the manipulation that they purport goes into the machines themselves. Tulsi Gabbard speaking to President Trump from during a cabinet meeting. This is publicized. This isn't me just saying it. She said, we now have proof of a stolen election, referring to 2020.
Yeah.
What was the context? She had just been briefed personally for half a day, and multiple members, staff within Tulsi's office and other members of Homeland Security had just received a 4-day briefing involving the people that we brought back to or into America who were involved in the 2020 election fraud with the machines working from Serbia. And that's when she said, we now have proof of a stolen election. It's just like you said, Mr. President, we're going to have to go to a hand count paper ballot. Okay? So clearly the Trump had briefed his cabinet where he was going on this stuff, and she said it. Now, why do you have to go to a hand count paper ballot? Because the machines cannot be fixed. Why? Because they're already fixed. Okay? And we can't use them. We can't use them in the next election. Trump's going to issue an executive order very shortly mandating hand count paper ballots nationwide. Uh, the states won't have any control over it because it's going to be done under an emergency, um, national security emergency involving elections. And within the context of that national emergency, uh, then uh, he can take control of the way that the vote is conducted right down to the county level. And these states don't see that coming. Colorado doesn't see it coming. Hawaii doesn't see it coming. Many other states don't see it coming. It's going to set this country on its ear. It's going to be the most important thing Trump does while in public office. The second most important, he's going to get number one, honest vote. Your vote's going to get counted the way it was cast. No more fraudulent votes in there, no machine mischief. And then he's going to get us honest money. So the vote's more important than the money, because if you can uh, counterfeit a vote, you use that counterfeit vote to get the politicians to spend money that we don't have, and uh, it's better than counterfeit money. But then he's going to go after the counterfeit money too immediately after that. So at the end of the day, uh, you know, this issue of the vote is front and center. Colorado is dreaming if Governor Polis and Secretary of State and the AG think that they're just going to shine us all on, forever. No, this is coming to a head, and I think President Trump is reaching a point where he's about to pull the pin on the Tina Peters case specifically to make a point. Why? Because, for example, the uh, Todd Blanch, deputy director over at uh, Justice Department under Pam Bundy, he sent a request last week and a half ago, to Colorado requesting that Tina Peters be turned over to federal custody. And the way that was interpreted by most people was that they're getting ready to take action. She will be a useful witness and expert as we get into some of the election crimes the Justice Department is currently investigating and related back to 2020 and other elections. And so she would be useful to the federal government in that in these investigations and ultimately prosecutions. Colorado, it was an informal request and it was formalized in a formal letter to the Colorado. The Colorado Attorney General responded, and it was a pretty snarky response. No, we don't think it's appropriate, and blah, blah, blah. And we're not letting go of Tina Peters. Normally, states are pretty responsive to that type of a federal formal request.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, it just goes to the political nature of holding Tina Peters. They do not want Tina Peters to be out of their control because they're using her as a scarecrow to keep everybody else in line, not just within the state of Colorado, but the people pulling Colorado's strings out across the country. Remember, this is an important thing you have to think about with Colorado. Colorado is the state where the state officials stepped up and tried to get Trump removed from the ballot for 2024
Right.
and said that he can't be on the ballot because of these, bullshit convictions out in New York while they're on appeal and everything else. So he's off. And it went through all the state courts, state Supreme Court in Colorado. Can Trump be kept off the statewide ballot? And they all said yes, 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 yes. And so they were all gleefully going to lead the nation in keeping Trump off the ballot, the federal ballot, the national ballot for 2024. There was a dozen other states lined up behind Colorado to remove Trump from the ballot. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
attorney generals and everybody all excited about doing this. And by the way, remember there was 18 attorney generals, I believe it was, from around the country that all left in January and went to South Africa, of all places. Okay, South Africa, where the president of South Africa came into the Oval Office and got pantsed by Trump over having the white farmers killed. They
Yes.
all went to South Africa and had a little secret conclave. They were in South Africa with a lot of their Democrat leaders, like the Marxist mayor of LA, Karen Bass. She was in South Africa as LA burned. Nero was in South Africa. You know, Jen and I landed the morning before the fire started. As we were landing in LA, we were landing west to east. Extremely unusual. It's only done a few times a year at LAX because the wind is offshore coming onshore from the Pacific,
Yep.
going from west to east. They had a Santa Ana wind that was quite powerful going that morning when we landed, and Air Force One was on the ground right underneath us. It was actually Air Force Three. It was the older one, not the 747. And so there's Biden's little plane down there, and with training wheels on it. And by the way, why wasn't he on 747? Trump said to the generals out in Virginia a few weeks ago when he had them all together, he said, I am 45, 46, and 47. Everybody was shocked. All the generals were kind of rolling their eyes. What in the world is he talking about with that? Because he never gave over command and control of the nuclear arsenal. The big 747 that has capability to run continuity in government, including nuclear, in the midst of an attack. But anyway,
Mm-hmm.
that said, They didn't give him the keys. He got the keys to the short bus, not the big bus. Um, but with that all in mind, Colorado has been at the forefront of opposing all things Trump, everything players and all that. They are contending that their state's right to hold Tina cannot be overrun by Trump. And Trump and a lot of his team, they've been trying to play this states' rights thing on all sorts of issues, including the vote, on several counts, including a national emergency, which Trump is about to announce regarding the vote. Trump does have the authority to remove Tina from Colorado's custody. He could do it before on other bases or after that national emergency is announced. And the reason that that's so important is because uh, it's moved up in importance, I should say. Um, Tina has been holding her own in a very desperate situation, but her health is really going by the wayside fairly quickly now. So the question is, can she wait for this next action? Um, she's been coughing up phlegm and lung tissue and everything else. She was going to be seen next week, and because of all the drama that I put out there, and you know, getting very pissed off, and others likewise, they moved up her exam to get some X-rays of her lungs. She's a lung cancer survivor. She was a stewardess for quite a long time early in life, and a lot of that was back in the dark old days when you could still smoke on airplanes, and so it was very hard on cruising like that.
Yeah.
And whatever reasons she got cancer, she got lung cancer, and had to have a third of her lung removed. And by the way, when she got the cancer originally, it was very hard for them to diagnose it. They didn't see it originally. She knew something was wrong. She felt miserable, and they had to look a few times before they finally figured out she had lung cancer, and they removed a third of her lung. Um, and she says she feels the same way she did then. It feels like the same thing, and so that's why we're sweating bullets in part. Um, the cumulative stress, 5 years of her life taken up with this. She should never have even been charged, especially by the state. Uh, it was a federal election. She was working to preserve federal election data. Um, there is no crime here, and they've, created something and sold it to a jury, and it needs to be, you know, uh, set aside, overturned. And again, you could be a baby raper. You'll get out on bond pending appeal. She has multiple appealable issues. She will win her case on appeal after having suffered 5 years of this bullshit, over a year and a half of it in custody in one of the worst jail systems in the country. So with
Yeah.
all and threatened, people actually threatening to kill her, to rearrange her face. She'll wake up a whole different person if she wakes up. Literally people that are mad, insane, criminally, medically insane, uh, being housed with her, and um, the stress has, taken its toll, um, and that's why we're pressing so hard. I mean, you know, am I wrong to get a bit unhinged over what's going on here? The president and his team, my request to the president is just figure it out. You got all these different people giving all sorts of response. You're president. We elected you. There's ways to do this. Figure it out and just get it done. Get her out. Don't wait another day. We don't need the grandstanding with the executive order and national emergency in this case. You got other grounds you can do it on. Just get her out immediately. If the other stuff isn't right now, get her out, please. And let's
Yeah.
get her where we can get her treated. And give her a fighting chance to live. Because if the cancer is catching up to, or whether it's already happened or is about to happen, um, it has to be addressed soon enough that she has enough um, piss and vinegar energy, whatever, to fight back.
Yeah. Tina as a person is an amazing woman. From everything I've been able to gather, I have not been able to meet her personally, but I hope to do so at one point soon. And people need to remember that this whole thing came about from her trying to protect the sanctity of her own county's elections and her state's
Well,
elections.
hold on. Let me just modify what you said slightly.
Okay.
She didn't try, she did. And the reason why, even slowing down for a second and making sure that's understood, when we got the people who actually stole the election 2020 onto U.S. soil, and even before that, here's what the deal is. This group goes all the way back to the Smartmatic days in Venezuela, where CIA helped a bunch of criminals over there come up with a way to cook elections. And when they did that, they were pushing and cooking elections all over the world. And by the way, just for anybody that doesn't know, the Los Angeles County, the largest county in America, has its own electronic election system machines, except that they're not totally built like they portray it within LA County. It's actually the Smartmatic machines that were being used all over the world to steal the elections in 71 countries plus the United States. These older style machines with the software. That was invented. That was moved from Venezuela out to work all over the world, and our own CIA helped fund a lot of that. Okay, working with communists, racketeers, uh, foreign intelligence agencies. So uh, when Venezuela began to fall sharply, Maduro there and like that, they needed a more stable place to work from. So they moved the key engineers and the technology to Serbia. And when they got to Serbia, they got reset back up with the server farms and all that. And they had a building that was built there. And here's something that'll just blow your mind. The building they built in Serbia, it's half owned by the wealthiest man in Serbia. But the other half of the building is owned by John Brennan. Yeah,
Mm.
you got it. Former director of CIA, okay? He owns the other half of the building where the server farm was set up to cook the elections in 2020. But before they did first big one here in the U.S. from that new location in Serbia, they needed to test. So you know where they tested their system? South Africa. The election to put Ramaphosa into office. The one that Trump pants there in the White House, this racist who's, literally destroying South Africa. He's the counterpoint to Maduro in Venezuela. And here's another little amazing little thing about that. Um, uh, with Maduro, the Justice Department handed down an indictment um, uh, on drug trafficking, terrorism, all sorts of things. And he's not the legitimate president of Venezuela. They did a fraudulent election in Venezuela. But those election systems were tested after the group moved up to Serbia, were tested on the South African election. They stole the South African election. They put Ramaphosa into office fraudulently. And President Trump has asked that everything in Ramaphosa be referred over to the Justice Department. They're expect that the Justice Department very shortly, as soon as we kind of get things stabilized with what we're doing in Venezuela, is going to hand down an indictment of Ramaphosa in South Africa, and it'll probably be for the same $50 million. And with all the bullshit that's gone on there. So there's a lot more election stuff to come. Well, a lot of these machines and what the people that came here uh, under our protection earlier this year, U.S. protection, after Trump got into office, what they're saying is that the machines were capable of being manipulated remotely. When Tina downloaded a before and then an after shot of her computer, which she had total of her election machines, the mini machines, before they did their trusted build, which she actually wasn't charged with doing anything wrong on that. She had the authority to have that done. They like made it out like the guy that actually did it somehow couldn't be in the room, but the actual deed of copying that, she had the total authority to do that. So it's kind of a bullshit charge thing. But Colorado is claiming they have the right to prosecute her over these various issues. Um, she was protecting federal election records according to federal election law. And so there's a higher authority here that can take control of her situation. And her data has become the Rosetta Stone. When the people were trying to show how these systems are vulnerable and how you can eliminate the records within the system, they pointed to the material that we got from what Tina downloaded before and after, and showed how that applied to their mechanisms to prove that we didn't have that from anywhere else in the country, that we had access to these things, the way they changed the files. And uh, in those records that she downloaded is proof that, in fact, Dominion did, in fact, change and wipe out election records from elections that were um, required to be held, for a couple of years, according to state and federal law. So that still hasn't been prosecuted. And that still is something that, if correct, should be addressed in the courts there in Colorado, but they aren't doing it. They're going after the person who protected the election records, not after the people who were wiping them. It's completely flipped upside down.
Yeah. So the way you describe Tina's condition, it sounds as if it's, as you say, deteriorating rather rapidly. And so one of the things that I wanted to make sure we gave some guidance on is, there are times when folks have to stand up and do what they've said for many years that they're willing to do, which is stand for what's right. What is the right thing to do? What can everybody listening do between now and the coming 24, 48, 72 hours to
Well,
try to make change?
um, Tina is very ill right now. She usually calls because of the threats against her life that have been going on. She usually calls uh, in the evening before they have lights out, and in the morning when she gets up, because literally they threatened to kill her. Uh, you know, we want a wellness check, and uh, that's been going on. The people that call, it's a very routine thing within some of her friends and associates. Um, Tina hasn't called in the last couple of days in the morning or the evening because she's just so sick she can't even get out of bed. Uh, they did take her to get an x-ray yesterday. They weren't going to do it till sometime next week, but because we made a huge stink, the prison people decided to move up the schedule and get it done. We won't have results on that, who knows for how long. Originally, they were going to get it done next week, and then we'll get results in a couple of weeks. If you have somebody that's had cancer and is a cancer survivor, you always know that it can come back. And a lot of times it comes back um, much more virulent and stronger. uh, and you have to keep it in check. Tina did stuff. Jen and I had her over here at our place for several weeks before she went to trial last 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, and she was very proactive to stay on top of her diet, her sleep timing. She, you know, uh, was careful on the nutrients. She had red light therapy. She did to keep her blood flowing. She did magnetic therapy, a pad that she would sleep on to keep her blood circulating well and even. And so she was able, I mean, she's a cancer survivor. She had cancer bad enough that to take out a third of her lung. Her chances at the time that she was originally in that condition were less than 50-50. And she had survived several years. Um, but the stress, the tension, the inability to get a decent night's sleep, let alone, they feed you mystery meat, bread with no nutrients in it. Before we're done with this administration and in the administrations after, one of the most critical things that I believe we have to do, because I have so many people that I've dealt with that have been in and out, ask any of the J6ers, prison reform. My friend Irwin Schiff and his wife, what they went through in the federal prison system, just horrendous. They killed them in prison. The reality, and by the way, in his situation, he didn't get any treatment, came down with cancer, and literally went very quickly. The prison, medical staff will tell you it's their job not to make you comfortable, but to keep you alive so you can serve out your sentence. And we actually had somebody that was involved in this, made some pretty snarky statements along those lines a while back that uh, I think were completely out of line. But you're in a situation where it's very hard to you know uh, get anybody to do anything about it. But they have a very snarky attitude there in Colorado about how they think this should go for Tina. If she dies there in prison, well, that's what they had her here for. So, when the judge sentenced her, 70 years old to essentially 9 years in prison, it's much, and women's prisons are the hardest. They're much harder than men's prisons. That's much harder on the women, just so you know. And they age a lot in that environment, and so it essentially was a death sentence for Tina. They want her in there till she's dead, sooner or later. That's unacceptable. What we're really asking for is to keep the pressure on. Uh, the governor Polis needs to relinquish custody of Tina to the federal with the federal request that came from Todd Blanch. Um, the medical release, her attorney Peter Tickton filed papers uh, yesterday um, looking for her to be released on a speedy basis on the medical stuff, but it goes before a board. They've got to analyze it. They get doctors up. It could be months before they even make a decision. And at this point, I think that we don't want to wait until it's a fait accompli that Tina's only got a short while left because the cancer's fully back. Uh, the stress has taken its toll. We're asking that President Trump intervene quickly. He has the authority to, and to uh, have Tina uh, released on one of the several grounds which he has authority to do, and get it done. Just figure it out. Pick up the phone, call everybody, let them ask all the questions, make all the statements, who's blocking it, what aren't we doing right, and figure it out. But get her out of there. President Trump has said she's a political prisoner. She is. He said 3 times, let her go, get her out, get it done. Hasn't happened. Well, he needs to up the game and get this done. and um, because playing nice guy isn't working apparently.
Yeah. Is there something the public can do to put pressure on this, or are we barking up a tree that just isn't going to work? Do you think?
No, we clearly did have an effect because the president directed. This was from the Oval Office, directed that they get this figured out over at Justice Department. Todd Blanch did send the federal request trying to play reasonably nice to have Tina remanded to federal custody. Uh, they did speed up instead of getting to her next week sometime to have an X-ray of her lungs, see if the cancer's back. They moved it up to yesterday. So they were responsive, but that's because the prison officials got 9,000 calls overnight Thursday. Okay,
Yeah.
uh, that's because the White House phone lines were being, you know, there was heavy calling uh, to get something done related to Tina over the last week. My angst, my concern is that even now there's a bureaucratic delay, and with this type of cancer and with the her lungs are full of phlegm. She's obviously got some type of a lung infection on top of everything else, uh, and it's not probably getting the right kind of a treatment. Um, that especially we have this kind of damage already there, it can move very quickly. And then all of a sudden, yeah, you get her out, it'll be a Pyrrhic victory because, uh, she'll be the Viking warrior princess, and we'll be, sending her off to, you know, heaven with, everybody there present for the Viking funeral. And, but it'll be too little too late. And, gosh, we all feel bad, but we were all restricted. We all couldn't do this or that or whatever. Bullshit. Need to move quickly, decisively, own this. I think the president's, anybody around him that's advising him to let the process work, in battle, things happen and sometimes you have to change your plan,
Mm-hmm.
change your timing because of opportunities that open up, particular pieces of information that open up. And I think this is one of those moments. Tina is very iconic within the whole election, machines, voting, and frauds movement, and stepped forward. She's a Gold Star mom. She's 70 years old. She's never had a moving violation in a vehicle. She's, goody two shoes. And then they're portraying her successfully as this villain, this monster. And if they succeed in having her die in prison or come out of prison and die shortly thereafter, it becomes a warning that you can't protect the good guys. It's the devil himself laughing at us, laughing, including precisely at President Trump. There was a movie that came out a few years ago, The Jackal. There was the first one was an amazing movie. The second one was an even more amazing movie in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
But the hinge moment in the whole movie, The Jackal, is when the bad guy has one of the detectives, a Russian detective. Uh, she's been fatally wounded, and she's still conscious. And he comes over and looks at her, and says, "Oh yeah, that's a really bad wound." Uh, Takes her hand and puts it where the wound is over her liver, and says, "If you keep the pressure on, you'll last about 20 minutes. If the pain becomes too great, just take your hand off. You'll be done in under a minute. And oh, by the way, if you live long enough, tell the detective, his name is Declan, uh, tell him you can't perjure women." it's a hinge point in the whole movie because in reality, this guy's going after the first lady, not the president, who they thought he was going after, to make a statement and to cause a problem. Well, you can't protect your women. Uh, they want the imagery that this 70-year-old woman, as much a patriot, mega, everything you can do, doing her job, county clerk, once they decided to go after her, you know, uh, City Hall couldn't stop them from doing what they wanted to do. Nobody could stop City Hall. Nobody can stop them. They want this image of invincibility to hold, and within these election machine area. Trump's going to stop it because he's going to put national emergency. He's going to stop the use of any electronic equipment at all in the 2026 election. Nothing. No existing voter rolls. Got to start from scratch. My team put together the basis for the executive order that I believe is going to be used in this and submitted it months ago. 17 pages. But in the meantime, if they can hold the line even for days, hours on Tina Peters and she expires, it 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 is a swipe at us and showing their invincibility. And that's why I believe that in part the president needs to act to uh, make a statement in the midst of all of this. We're not. That's not true. We're not going to be run that way. And you are, uh, you're not as invincible as you think. Get Tina out of there and give her a chance at life. I don't want. I don't want some stadium full of people with cell phones waving with the lights on. Gosh, we thank you, Tina, for your sacrifice. I want Tina there to enjoy the victories that are coming because we are going to win our country back with honest votes. And that's Trump's number one thing of all of his time in office. That's the most important thing that he wants to leave as his legacy. Well, Tina is at front and center, iconic in that legacy. And Tina, her son Remington, Navy SEAL, was on the demonstration team, parachute team, killed in a very unusual situation, double chute failure, which is very questionable. How did that happen? It just never happens. And he's not here to fight for her. He's not here to say anything for her. We had the Veterans Day the other day. Well, she's a vet too in a different type of war. Uh, he can't fight for his mom. He's watching us. What are we going to do to fight for her? She needs to be free of the monsters and the bullshit and not a political prisoner. It's painful that we have political prisoners here, and she's, the 70-year-old woman. Uh, you know, these people that are doing this, many of them will be in prison themselves at some point in the not too distant future. When they're there, we're gonna give them crickets. Oh, I remember how you treated Tina Peters. I remember. Yeah, okay. What comes around goes around, huh? That's the way I feel.
Yeah. You spoke of these people that have done this to her and have done many of these bad things, if you will. It reminds me of something that you said, and it when I saw Jenna Greenwald or Griswold, pardon me, make a comment the other day, and she seemed to exhibit so many of these characteristics of the six things that God hates.
Yeah.
The haughty eyes, the lying tongue, the hands that shed innocent blood, and you can't really overlook those things in the midst of this. I mean, what kind of person, you called them monsters a minute ago, what kind of person would do this to, as you say, a 70-year-old kind, gentle woman? It baffles most people's understanding.
I'm sure that the people I'm talking about here wouldn't see it this way, but um, demons, the devil himself, he gets a certain energy from uh, stealing the life energy out of his victims. You see it in the madness of some of the things that the most unhinged, the least um, inhibited of his followers do, all the way to child sacrifice. Uh, the devil, unchallenged, will very quickly reach some type of a crescendo within the people that he's manipulating that delights in torment and death. Uh, uh, it's where he goes. He can veil it, and his followers can veil it up to a point, but at a certain point where the victim, uh, they somehow get spurred along by the cries of their victims. And in this case, you see this even with Tina's situation. They get some delight that uh, she uh, is feeling the torture. They'll couch it like the judge did, as though he's doing something righteous, some righteous act in
Mm-hmm.
punishing Tina and throwing the book at her and everything else. But it falls flat when you really know what the situation is. She's a greater terrorist threat than the baby rapers, the drug dealers, everybody else. Seriously. And he took a lot of time in his pontification at the sentencing of Tina to explain in excruciating detail just what a horrible person she was, what a threat to our society and everything else she was. Um, that was just over the top, unnecessary, inappropriate, and then throwing the book at her. He was trying to justify this extreme action in the sentencing for everybody. It only reinforced how unhinged the system is in Colorado. Remember, they wanted to keep Trump off the ballot. It wasn't until they got to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court shut them down completely. Yet in Colorado, as far as they were concerned, all of the courts, all the judges, all the politicians were absolutely in agreement. You couldn't have Trump on the ballot. Trump derangement syndrome is real, and the Supreme Court had to shut him down. You had another dozen states that were absolutely ready to go, primed, waiting for the Supreme Court decision so they could take Trump off the ballot instantaneously also. They all got their hopes dashed because the Supreme Court said, no way, not happening, okay? Uh, the courts in Colorado are over the top. And just like we found out all the BS going on over at New York and some of the courts there that were going after Trump and Letitia James and like that,
Mm-hmm.
uh, this is going to take a while to play out. But I think that Colorado, in the end, will be seen as being um, over the top in what they did, and they'll have to get reeled in. And when they are, they're going to act all shocked and everything else. Our problem is we can't be so patient as to allow Tina to be sacrificed on the altar of bureaucracy, an inch at a time, a pound at a time, and that's what's happening. At a certain point, you have to jump in and stop the torment, the torture, and throw caution to the wind. And I think
Yep.
that's where we're at with what this administration needs to do. No more, playing the game. Uh, the bureaucratic process is so flawed that you must act decisively quickly.
Yep. Well, thank you for giving us the briefing on where we stand. Any last thoughts before we close for today, Juan?
Oh, Jennifer just came over. She has something on her site. She has these ties with the Megador. Trump is the Megador on the tie. Just arrived. So she has a special over at her site, thejennifermack.com. You got to put the in there, but
Oh, that's great.
it's a fun tie, and she has some other fun stuff over there that she put a package together for Christmas like that if people wanted it. But before we're done with what's going on here, I believe that the image we will have of Trump is state bull. Forget the bullshit, kill the bull. And that's one of the things, even in this Colorado situation, they've been putting bullshit out for so long. The whole country's had to deal with it, just like trying to take Trump off the ballot, keeping Tina there, this icon, in a position where we look weak because they can hold her and it doesn't matter. It's like strapping victims on the front of your tank as you're going into battle or something. And, that's what they've got with Tina, and it just has to be come against. It cannot be allowed any longer. And so killing the deep state bull, we got to get rid of them. So that's the imagery I think that we'll have a Trump down the road years from now when we see everything that's done.
That'll be great. I remember when Jen first did the Magador artwork, and it's what it's gone into all kinds of materials now. You jackets and I think flags and other things that you've created that are just a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. Well, she's got just a few of the jackets that I signed over at her shop right now, and I don't know what sizes are left, but I signed some when I was there a couple weeks ago, and there's an event that's going to be happening at Mar-a-Lago in December, and that'll be something that is going to be there at that event. So I think a lot of people are going to want one before it's over, so you might want to go order one quick while you can. But anyway, it's fun stuff. We enjoy it, and it helps. We fly the flag. So
Yeah. So Juan, once again, thank you for the time. For the folks out there, please take time and offer a heartfelt prayer for
yep.
The protection of Tina, and for those who hold her in harm's way, something to reach their hearts, some air of righteousness to reach their hearts, to move beyond this, and let's get her free. Let's get her safe.
Yes. Yep. She did a tremendous amount for the whole country, and now we need to step in there for her. And she did it before most people even realized there was a problem. Now the whole country, the whole world is growing to understand the extent of the problem day by day. But we need to do it not over her corpse, but keep her intact so she can enjoy our victory with us, not as a memory.
Yes, very well said. Thank you again, Juan. We appreciate the time.
Right. Beautiful. Thank you. Appreciate the chance to talk to your audience.
You bet. Talk with you soon.